Yo, turn the volume up, it's crypto made easy by Zypto. Step into the hive, we buzzing on a chain. Zypto in my wallet, ain't playing no games. Web3.
Hello, blockchain nerds, traders, hodlers, moon boys, and everyone else, including all of you total crypto noobs. There is no shame in being a noob, and well done for doing some research. Welcome to the Crypto Made Easy with Zypto podcast. Big thanks to our future AI overlords for the intro music, of course. My name's Joe Parkin. I'm one of the founders of Zypto, and this is our podcast in which we lay out some basic concepts that are relevant to our guests' project. Then we do a deep dive into what they do. We discuss some general cryptosphere topics, and then we take some questions from our live audience here in the @Zypto Global Telegram channel, which is home of our very own Zyptonian community. And today, it's our great privilege to be joined by CrimsonClad, who is, if not the queen bee, at the very least, a part of the Hive royal family, although I'm sure she's going to tell me that there's no such thing as that. How are you doing today?
I am lovely. Thank you for such a kind intro. Yeah. So my name is CrimsonClad, and I work in core operations with the Hive Blockchain, which is a really incredible blockchain community built from the ground up, grassroots, open source, and built for social sharing and bring communities together. It's a really fast and feeless blockchain that hosts some of the biggest games in the world, that allows for on-chain communities, for forums, for chats, for polls, all of the things that money first and token first blockchains don't do very well. We also do that, alongside a really fast token. The idea is we know that value is not just monetary. Yeah, number go up, really freaking important. Coins in my pocket, really freaking important. But the way that we move money around, the way that we transact value, and the things that we want to trade our coins for, that is the missing piece in the cryptosphere. And Hive is built to address that. So alongside being able to move your money around, to earn APR, to work inside an ecosystem that isn't, built in a corporate sort of way or a Web2 sort of way, we also really focus on using blockchain to build solutions for communities to transact the value that isn't just crypto. And it means it's a pretty cool place to hang out, for sure.
Which I've seen a lot of, which we will probably get into a bit later about how we're working together. I'll throw it out there now. So by the time this episode airs, Hive will most likely already be live in Zypto app. We've been working on the integration for some time, working closely with CrimsonClad and the rest of the team. That includes all sorts of standard wallet features, but also paying with Hive and HBD for Zypto cards, for bill pay, mobile top-ups. We've even built an option to allow people to create Hive accounts that are linked to their existing DeFi wallet seed phrases, so they can be re-imported if you change device or something like that. So that should be out there pretty soon. I actually wanted, before we carry on with the section about kind of basic blockchain stuff, could you give us a bit of a rundown about yourself, like how you got into crypto to start with, how long you've been involved with Hive, and how that began?
Sure, yeah. This is good practice because I hate talking about myself. So I'm definitely, I guess, approaching crypto OG. I am from Vancouver, Canada. I'm on the west coast of Canada, and that is a very Ethereum-centric town. So I actually started in Ethereum, not Bitcoin. And that probably would have been around 2015 or so. And I'm still poor, so that should tell you how I've done, given that I think the price of ETH at that time was around $18 or $20. But I got really fascinated by that. And ETH was it was a novelty to me, because at that time, Larva Labs in Vancouver and everything was just kind of really kicking off. And I understood the idea, but I wasn't connecting it to money yet. ETH led me to pre-rich. That's exactly it. I was pre-rich. And that led me to Bitcoin. Bitcoin made sense to me. Bitcoin was like, hey, all the things that I didn't understand about money in the real world, in meat sack world, Bitcoin made clear for me, and it made me care about my financial well-being in a way that the real world just didn't. I never really cared about my finances. I just floated along and existed. Bitcoin ignited something in me that I think was always there. And I think for most of us who find crypto, that's exactly what happens, is we realize, holy crap, everything is broken and I want better. So that kind of launched me into this deep dive on everything crypto. And in 2016, end of 2016, beginning of 2017, I heard about a blockchain that was basically saying, hey, we'll pay you for content. And I thought, well, that sounds too good to be true. So that's probably fake. I'm going to go check it out. I want to see what this is all about. And that was a legacy blockchain called Steem. And it turned out that what they were saying was, no, what we're going to do is we're going to look for humans that make content on social media, and we are going to use that as our distribution mechanism. We want humans to have crypto, not airdrop bots, not, whitelist grinders. And I mean, obviously those things weren't quite as prevalent back then, but the idea was proof of brain. We want to find real humans. We want to distribute our coins to them, and we want them to continue distributing coins to everyone else. That's how we're going to do it. We're not going to have just the rich get in, just the first get in. And so that was fascinating to me. So I fell headfirst into the Steem blockchain. And that basically became my obsession. And I started working with them. There was a team, Steem It Inc. And this is always very confusing. We'll see how the edit comes out on this. But Steem It Inc. had a company called Steem It Inc. They were a team. They had a company. They owned the blockchain called Steem, and they built a website called Steem It. So just in case you were confused, now it's perfectly clear. Absolutely. The long and the short of it was the blockchain, the code, the website, and all the pieces of this were still owned by a team and had a huge founder share. But the community ran with it. I don't think anybody expected for it to become so popular. It was sort of like having Reddit on the blockchain, where every upvote helped distribute new tokens. Really, really cool. And so with the long and the short of it was those founders tokens came back to bite everyone. For 4 or 5 years, the community built games, new websites. They expanded. The blockchain thrived. The community got bigger. But those founders tokens were always in the background. And everybody's most hated crypto villain reared his head. Justin Sun came along, made a deal to buy those founders tokens out from underneath the community from the company, which happens, and thus began the longest and probably to this day most extreme 50% attack that's ever happened in the world. So he took those founders tokens. He tried to take control of consensus. He had this idea that he would buy the Steem community and he would then start distributing Tron to them. And he would say, hey, look at this. Look at all these people who now have Tron wallets. Look at all this activity on the Tron chain. Well, the Steem community was pretty upset about that, let me tell you. And so after a protracted battle that will take way too long to explain, but I highly recommend going out and looking it up. There are some fascinating articles on Decrypt. Vitalik was talking about it. People were pointing to this as being one of the more important sort of turning points in crypto history. In 2020, the Steem community said, screw it. Take your blockchain, take all this nonsense that you're doing, keep your founders tokens. We are going to fork away. We're going to be open source. We are going to be community built. We are not going to have any founders tokens, no company, no leader, no nothing. We're going to break away. We're going to do our own thing. So we're not even going to fight for what we did for X amount of years. We're literally going to fork off. You can have your chain. We're going to do it again. And there was no guarantee that this would work. None. Absolutely none. And now, I guess, what are we at? 2025. 5 years later, we just celebrated our 5th anniversary in March. 5 years later, Hive, the blockchain that forked away from Steem, has outperformed by every metric, activity, price, development, has outperformed Steem since day one. And so it is a huge point of pride because Justin Sun, yeah, you're right. He has a lot of supporters, as I see in the chat. Justin Sun pumped a lot of money into that chain and a lot of money into those coins, and still does. And that's fine. But that is one way of doing crypto. And for everybody in the Hive community, crypto is this thing that should be sovereign. It should be free. It should lead you towards being able to earn money, should lead you towards being able to understand how the world works and having your place and your say in it. And then also the freedom to engage with who and what you want. For a lot of people, the way that he does things, that's not what they wanted to engage with. So while Hive has this origin story that seems like, fuck you guys, I'm going home. You can bleep that if you have to.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You can double down if you like.
fuck you guys, I'm going home, or whatever it is, make a new blockchain with hookers and blow. The reality is it really was about making a statement. And that is that crypto is not something that should be arbitered by or the truth created by any one group. There should be no one locus of control if you have a viable blockchain and a viable currency. And so our community said, no problem, we're going to show you the value and where it comes from. And believe it or not, it's not inherent in a coin. Community creates value. People create value.
Absolutely.
People transact value. So where people go, that's where value is seen. And so, by every metric, Hive should have failed instantly. And after 5 years, if you're looking at the totality of the history of this community and what we've been building, closer to 10 full years, that is insane. It is an OG blockchain. It is full of people who are building not just for the right reasons of money go up and viable currency, but also for passion and for ideology. And there's a lot of really cool stuff happening in our ecosystem. So I know that is a long-winded intro and very little about me, but that's basically, I fell, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Hive, and Hive just sucked me into a maelstrom. And it has been a decade now of building the place that I want to be, the crypto I want to use. So yeah, absolutely. Do I use other chains, other coins? 100%. I was a Zypto user before we even started this integration. But Hive, to me, symbolizes what we could do, whether it's cross-chain, cross-community, cross-ecosystem. It's what crypto should be trending towards. The way to build things free and equitable at a base layer that supports great communities, that supports great businesses, whether they are hybridized, whether they're really corporate, whether they're insane, free-form Web3, fantasy, whatever. All of those things should take advantage of the inherent rights and values that come along with crypto. And then build what you want on top of that, engage with who you want.
Absolutely. I'm fully on board with this whole philosophy. At the end of the day, the difference between, I often tell people the difference between crypto and kind of the traditional monies that are out there is that is, fiat economies are built by governments and by bankers, etc., whereas crypto communities are built by communities. Crypto is built by community, and unfortunately, the speculative aspect of crypto does tend to somewhat dilute that or distract from it. But I love seeing these more grassroots communities like Hive. I say grassroots not because it's small, because there are a lot of Hive users. I say because they're really sticking to the fundamental values that crypto should represent, which are things that we should all care about, actually, regardless of whether you're in crypto or not. So I'm just going to drag us back a little bit to the our normal format with the basics. So people joining that are just starting to learn about crypto, there are a few things that I think they'd be interested to hear. So I don't know whether we've discussed wallet addresses in past episodes, and in case we haven't, each blockchain wallet's usually identified with a really, really long string of letters and numbers. Honestly, it's less than ideal. You have to copy and paste it every single time. You can make mistakes. You have to memorize like the last few digits or something to differentiate between them.
However, that's actually quite dangerous.
It is quite dangerous because it can be tricked if people depend on the last few digits.
That's right.
Because you can keep generating them, or there are different methods that people can use to create similar addresses and then trick people. However, Hive does not work that way. So could you explain briefly how Hive accounts or Hive addresses differ and why that's so important?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you used both terms there, addresses, accounts, wallets, and in the world of crypto, you're right. These are very distinct things. And wallet addresses in general, especially when you're thinking of blockchains like Ethereum, like Bitcoin, often you want to generate one-off addresses or whatever the case may be. And you get these long alphanumeric strings that are not human readable. We use that term a lot, human readable, because if you look at that, your brain is not going to be able to form that into a sentence, into a recognizable snippet. Hive, we think a lot about how do we move that value around? And you're going to hear me say this a lot, whether here in the podcast or out and about, if you ever see me doing educational talks. Value, we move it around and we move it between people. We move it between products. So it's really important that identity comes into play. Value is often defined by a person or a place or a thing, and we want to know that the value that we're giving to them goes to them. So identity is a big part of Hive's community. You're making content, not just moving money around. Why on earth would your wallet not be the same as your username? Your wallet address should be your username. The identity that you choose to go by, however you define it, for me, it's at CrimsonClad. It's not just a repository of your content, but it's where you can find me. If you know that you want to send me some money, why would you not send it to CrimsonClad versus OX, blah, 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 blah. It's much easier, and it starts really opening up cool options for identity verification that doesn't have anything to do with a piece of government issued ID. You don't have to give your stupid driver's license, a piece of plastic, some identifying documentation when you have a wallet address that is recognizably you and that you can key verify anywhere. And there are lots of ways that this can be expanded, because if you're using your Hive address and you're using your Hive blockchain wallet that is at CrimsonClad, you can tie other wallet addresses to it. There's lots of things that you can do that are verifiable on the blockchain that actually also allow you to make other types of wallets safer too. But for Hive, the big thing is you want to know that the person that you just played a game with is the same person that you want to send a tip to, is the same person that you'd like to buy an NFT from, is the same person that you'd actually like to read their blog too, because it turns out they're pretty cool. And then you're going to go leave a comment from your wallet address, and that'll be the same place that you sent the tip from. Hive is very interconnected. So the idea is that every wallet address, every wallet username, every wallet account is human readable, whatever you may choose it to be, and it can interact with other wallet addresses, other wallet identities in any way that you want. So you get to define that identity, and you also get to choose who you interact with and the history that you want to attach to that account. If I don't want to attach something to CrimsonClad, I can use another wallet address, I can use another option, but it really is an interesting way of defining the history of your actions on a blockchain. When we talk about trust in this space, or we want to know, how do we know that somebody's done something, that somebody's friends with somebody else? All of these things come back to, where am I transacting value? Who did I send a payment to visibly? Or where did I actually win a game? Or who did I make a public memo to? These things I can attach to my wallet address. And so having that human readable nickname is fantastic. It cuts down on errors. It allows you to build an identity, and it allows you to start looking at the people around you in the community as people, which is, we don't think about that a lot when we use crypto addresses, but it's important, especially when you are able to send your crypto through a community where people are interacting in more than just sending money around.
I'm personally really enjoying having the, we have at Zypto app, for example, having it being that simple, being able to live in my mind without having to store it somewhere digitally. It's fantastic. The next thing I was going to ask you about or discuss with you was gas fees. So we've discussed this in the past with other guests, what they are, how they work, etc. But the thing is, Hive doesn't have them, or I believe you don't have them. Could you explain a bit what's used instead?
Yeah. So gas fees, if you're very new, that's, the fee that you pay to make your money go. It's pretty simple. And you may, as you kind of explore the crypto world and the crypto ecosystem, you may run into ecosystems that have something like a gas token, where you have a separate coin or a separate token that you pay your gas fees in, so you don't use the main currency. Well, we don't do that either. Hive is considered feeless. And there's a way that we do this, because when we think about why are there fees in the first place for any type of transaction, fees are part of security, and they're part of making sure that the blockchain doesn't get overloaded. And they're also part of making sure that people aren't doing malicious things without having to, at least put in some effort to try. Because when you have a fully feeless blockchain, the worry is, oh, well, somebody's going to send a ton of transactions or they're going to be able to spam. That is a big concern, and it's real. For Hive, we have something called a resource credit system. And, it's got a bunch of names, and I'll explain it to you. But the beautiful thing is, most of the time, you will never even think about it. One of the ways that we want to change how blockchain works is we want to make it functional for people who game, people who are using social media, people who are doing things that aren't just sending money around. But make no mistake, you shouldn't have to spend your money to use your money. That's very Web 2. That's very corporate bank. And honestly, that's very bullshit. So how do you
Agreed.
Balance out? Right? Come
so
on.
I was muted. I had to jump in
Yep. She's
gas
bullshit.
fees are one of the biggest issues in the whole space. Honestly,
Absolutely.
It makes everything so incredibly inconvenient.
And so for a lot of people, when you think about how your real world bank works, you get hit all the time with little fees and things like that. You're conditioned to just accept them, but also they're built into prices you pay. They're built into services you use. You don't see them. So the reality is you're always paying them. They're always there. But crypto can do this better. And so Hive's system is this resource credit system. And it's very simply put, kind of like a load balancer. It's there to protect the blockchain. It's there to essentially make sure that people can use the blockchain when they need to, but also make sure that people can't act maliciously, or if they do, they really have to pay for it. And so I'll kind of explain it on a really, really basic level. When you stake some of your Hive, you are locking it up for a period of time. You can earn some interest on it, but what you're also doing is saying, hey, this is some Hive that I'm turning into Hive power, and I'm going to use it to exert my influence on the blockchain. We've got a number of ways to do that. But when we're just talking about the absence of gas fees, what this does is it says, hey, listen, I know I want to use the Hive blockchain. I'm going to earn some APR on this, but also it's going to give me the ability to interact. And it's basically like saying, hey, I've got some skin in the game, so my gas fees are paid for, if you want the most simplistic version. Yeah.
Could I ask a kind of a practical application question? Like, imagine somebody like your average user that maybe does, let's say, a maximum of kind of 5 transactions a day, something like that. More or less, would you be able to say approximately how much Hive they would need to stake in order for them to be able to do that without gas?
Yeah. So, well, okay. We're gonna have to go through 2 ways. If you wanted to start out by yourself completely, without any help or anything like that, if you're just moving crypto around, you need very, very, very little staked, like less than 10 Hive. And when you create a Hive wallet, there are 3 Hive.
So 10 Hive would be about
$2, not even
$2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what happens when you create your Hive wallet address, 3 Hive are burned and they are soul bound. The resource credits that go from those Hive are soul bound to your account, which means you will never have a stuck wallet. When you have like any sort of EVM wallet and you don't have enough gas to transfer in gas to transfer out the last of what you have.
Yes, I know that. Yes.
That is impossible. That is impossible on Hive because every wallet that is created, whether you pay for it, somebody else pays for it, whether it's created through one of our other like help a friend options, those are there's always enough for a coin transfer. Always. Right down to 0 to a completely empty wallet. And it means that wallet can be reactivated at any time because it's always there. It's soul bound. But I digress. So, you don't need much. And there is another unique aspect of the Hive ecosystem. So if you wanted to leave comments, you would probably need a little bit more. We usually recommend starting with about 15 Hive power and going up. And depending on when you interact or how much time you're willing to take in between, resource credits regenerate. So you kind of have to look at this as a system that basically says, hey, listen, the more skin you have in the game, the more you can do without waiting. Otherwise,
Yep.
if you want to use the blockchain, you still can. These replenish. They may just take some time. And the whole Hive blockchain all the time is basically doing these background calculations. So you never have to think about it. You never really have to worry about it. And resource credits and sort of the cost to do different types of transactions on the blockchain are all load balanced. So if this is like a peak time and all of a sudden you've got thousands of people who are making blogs and whatever, it actually becomes a little bit more expensive in terms of resource credits to post a blog. And it may mean that you want to stake more Hive. That being said, we don't see that happen very often. And we do have, on average right now, I would say between 10 and 50,000 users a day making unique posts, comments, votes on chain. So we see that 15 HP Hive power is more than enough.
This has been interesting for us during our implementation. Every single other chain that we've integrated in Zypto up until now was the same flow. It's so you go to sign a transaction, so to send some money or to sign a contract or something like that, and it tells you how much gas it's going to cost you. You see whether you've got enough or not. We actually have quite a few problems because Zypto is so kind of centralized looking that a lot of people have started using it and they don't even realize they're using a DeFi wallet. They think they're on a centralized exchange, and then they're like, why won't it let me send this stuff? But we have to explain gas to them, or the support team does. But anyway, but now with Hive, I was hit by this while I was testing, and we've got you got like a percentage, like a bar of how much RC you have left. It's quite unique. I think everybody's going to enjoy playing around with this when they get it in Zypto.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's so refreshing to be like, oh, I'm paying literally zero currency, and this transaction will probably go through in 3 seconds or less. That's wild. Move your money around as much as you want. No big deal. But so just to kind of touch on the last of resource credits, and I know we're trying to explain it in the most simplified way, but one of the other really cool things about the resource credit system is that when you hold a lot of Hive power, not only can you take a lot of actions on the blockchain, it allows you to do things like create wallets for free. You can burn some of those RCs in the background without a cost, without a Hive cost, create new wallets. And especially if you're a developer or let's use Splinterlands for an example. Splinterlands is one of the biggest blockchain games in the world. It's an OG blockchain game. It has been around for 7+ years, almost 5 billion games played on chain, 0 gas fees paid, not by the Splinterlands team and not by Splinterlands users. That's wild when you think about blockchain gaming. It's important to a good experience, but it's also, again, I am not getting nickeled and dimed to play, magical cardboards on the internet. It's not happening. I'm not doing it. No way. So this is the model that we think most other blockchains should be using, and why we want to see more hybrid aspects. But the way that it works is that you can delegate your resource credits. So for example, I'm not trying to flex, but obviously I hold a decent amount of Hive. It's a big part of my portfolio, and I hold it because I want to use it. It's not even about money. I want to use it. So I could actually loan my resource credits to Joe, to any one of the users in chat right now who might want to create a Hive wallet. Not only can I help you using my Hive influence, I can loan them to you to use, and I can do that without transferring you my crypto. I don't have to give you control of anything because we don't trust, we verify. That's a crypto thing. One of the most important aspects is I want to be able to use all of the features of my coins, but I don't want to put them in your hands. I want to retain control. And this is so important, not just for community building, but bringing on newbies. If you're a newbie and somebody says, well, we have a system, but it doesn't have gas fees and it's got resource credits and you could do this. We know how
That's
hard it is for Hive or, anywhere else to explain something to a newbie. Crypto is complicated. What this system allows for is that if you want to help somebody onboard, you can create a wallet address for them. You can invisibly, with no steps at all, delegate them some resources in the background and just let them begin using. No explanations whatsoever. Just use the blockchain a little bit. Make a comment. Send some currency.
This is what we're all aiming for at the end. We're trying to make the onboarding experience easier for people. Is one of the main objectives that the whole of crypto should be aiming for, really. And We're solving multiple of those issues here. We've done our best in the Zypto implementation to provide all of these different options. So you can be invited by a friend. We've also made it so that you can, for example, if you've got some Solana, then you can use that to create a wallet. So we've got some resources staked, and then you can kind of take a share of that by contributing with some Solana. We've got lots of different options on there. Hopefully it's easy enough, but everybody listening, if you find it complicated, make sure you let us know, because we're always looking for ways to make the whole Zypto experience easier.
And we love this because this is one of the first sort of outside attempts by a wallet to do this, because it's different than an EVM chain. And you will find as you move around, and as you at EVM and SVM being Ethereum virtual machine, Solana virtual machine, they're essentially chains that are forks or derivatives of Ethereum code or Solana code. And most new chains, new coins are that. And what it means is it's a little bit of a lowered barrier to entry because the code already exists, the way it works already exists. So especially wallet providers or exchanges or DEXs, if you're an EVM or an SVM, they're like, yeah, of course we can add you. It's literally instantaneous because the code is already done. Hive is not an EVM. It's not an SVM. It's its own protocol. It's its own consensus mechanism. It's a totally separate blockchain. And so that is so amazing because we can do things differently, but it's also been a bit of a barrier because, of course, other outside services have to learn how to use it or learn how to integrate it. And while that's not hard, what's a faster way to collect money? You go around, you find every new EVM, you integrate them, and you take a fee. Whereas, with Hive, you actually do have to do a little bit of work. And while it's not necessarily a ton, it is not as fast. And in some ways, especially for the biggest sort of DeFi wallets or EVM wallets out there, it doesn't have the return that they would want. Which is instantaneous onboarding of, whatever new hype token that will be around for 14 seconds and then die. So
that's pretty much it.
It's been really exciting working with Zypto because okay, here we are. We've been around for almost 10 years in one form or another, if you're counting the legacy chain. The amount of fees and the amount of users that you could have captured is huge, but it's playing the long game. And that's really not something the whole sort of crypto world works very well with.
No, they're not generally very good at the long game. It's all a very, very short game. It's those 14 seconds of the meme token pump.
That's right. The daily... it used to be, the cycle runner, and then it used to be the daily runner. And now it's freaking wild. Now, if you are not plugged into whatever dank meme backroom Telegram exists, you will miss the daily or the minute runner. You'll have missed it. It happened. In fact, it already just happened right now. We missed 3.
There'll all be a flash in the pan. We know this to be the case, and it's been proven to be the case. What we're all about is supporting the long-term vision of crypto, the real long-term vision of crypto, which is to merge with and ultimately replace the incumbent system by empowering users, empowering people to maintain sovereignty over their own everything from all of their assets, so their ideas as well as their money, which is why we've been pleased to be able to work with you as well as other like-minded chains to move this forwards.
Amen. Honestly,
that concludes the sermon. So,
it's absolutely it. Is how do we pick up on the chains, the communities, the tokens, the coins that want to build a future where you can be as involved with or as hands off with your crypto as you want? How do you take advantage of all of the inherent rights and abilities that come with blockchain? And how do you sort of pick your spot on the sliding scale of hybridized, where somebody is helping you, holding your hand, whether it's custodial, all the way down to full self-custody, full self-regulation, full OPSEC, but you should be able to choose. And that's obviously, it's important for Hive, it's important for Zypto. Match made in heaven. Love it.
So I'm gonna move on to the next topic, which is stable coins. So we've discussed them quite a lot in previous episodes. It's a big thing in the blockchain payment space right now. It's a kind of hybrid thing using fiat value, but blockchain rails. And Hive has, once again, a different way of approaching this. So you have HBD. HBD is completely unlike any other. So could you explain a little bit how HBD or Hive-backed dollars work?
I could indeed. HBD is, as you said, Hive-backed dollars. And it is essentially, and I'm going to use a term for the crypto newbies that might be familiar, might not be. It's something that we like to refer to as a debt instrument. And that sounds really complicated, but what it means is...
terrifying.
It sounds terrifying. But what it basically
like a
means
weapon
is...
wielded by a bank.
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't mind if somebody came up and tried to club me with a stack of cash. And so when we say debt instrument, what we mean is it's something that basically just represents what you're owed or what could be owed. So HBD is the blockchain saying, hey, listen, crypto prices fluctuate. Hive prices fluctuate. You're constantly earning Hive, spending Hive, using Hive. You have Hive power. You have all this stuff going on. Sometimes you just want to pay for something and you want to know that a dollar is a dollar is a dollar. I don't want to think about exchange rates. I don't want to think about how much Hive this is going to cost. I just want, in US dollars, I want to know what this is worth. That's the purpose of Hive-backed dollars. All the time, the blockchain looks at one HBD, and what it is $1 US worth of Hive. However many Hive that is, whether it's a lot, whether it's a little, the blockchain will always treat HBD as $1 USD worth of Hive. Now, the reason that's different than another stable coin that you might find is because there is no reserve of US dollars because it's not representing a US dollar. It's representing $1 worth of Hive. And what that means is you can spend HBD, you can send it around because it's much easier. I know that I owe Joe $5. I'm going to send him 5 HBD. And that HBD, no matter the price of Hive, is $5. So if I'm paying him for something, if I lost a bet, if I'm sending him a tip, if I just think he's looking real cute today, I'm going to send that 5 HBD. And at any time, Joe can either pass that along as $5, or he can turn it back into whatever the current price is, $5 worth of Hive. So it is kind of like an IOU. An IOU is a debt instrument. I owe you $5 worth of Hive at the current price. And that allows you to move money around, and especially for businesses, games, things like that, where you just need a stabilized price. It allows you to move that around without having to do all of the confusing bits. It's all algorithmic. It's all managed by the blockchain. It means that the reserves behind that Hive-backed dollar are there on chain. You don't have to trust that, USDT on Tron. You got to hope somebody's got enough US dollars somewhere. You hope. You pray. None of that is relevant in our ecosystem because this is all on chain, and it is all a way of making it easier for people and businesses to think in terms of dollars, but use in terms of crypto. And it has a lot of benefits with it because, of course, you can transfer it you can convert it either from HBD to Hive or Hive to HBD. But HBD right now, not only can you move it for no fees, quickly and easily between any account, things like that, it also earns high APR. So I'm actually not sure what it's at right now, which is a shame on me. I think it's at 15%. I'll check in a second, but I have my HBD staked. It's currently earning 15% APR. And let me just see, in 31 hours, I'll be able to claim it.
Not bad, is it?
It is not bad, especially because you're not, again, having to trust that there is some place that is going to give you the money that you're earning in interest. They're not holding some USDT and earning in the real world and then paying you out for what they're earning. This is solely managed by the blockchain. So you get 15% on this, and it's paid out monthly. You can claim monthly and continue to earn. And when you're ready, you can either spend it as HBD or you can convert it into Hive. You could power it up. You could use it as liquid Hive tokens, whatever the heck you want to do with it. So that APR, yes, it's considered over the year, but you actually can claim once a month. So I've actually got some. I'm going to claim some in 31 hours. I'm going to claim $45. So there you go. So it's a way of all of the benefits of stables, but it also gets us away from some of the really scary trust-based things that are happening in the world. There is a place for fiat-backed stables, certainly. There is that crossover of Web 2, Web 3 world, bricks and mortar, and online. But when we're talking about inside our ecosystem, we want to make it easy so that people can think in the currency that they're used to or think in a fiat value, but never have to trust a fiat institution. And so it means that, yeah, I'm going to pay you for the work that you did. I'm going to buy some NFTs off you. I'm going to place a bet on this Splinterlands match. I'm going to, receive a reward on my content that I made on the blockchain. Whatever that is, I'll understand it in the terms of a currency that's easy, it doesn't have the crazy fluctuations of crypto, but I will be able to turn it into the coin, Hive, that I want to use at any time. And the blockchain never has to worry that there's backing on this because it's always there. It's part of the total market cap. It's part of everything that the blockchain tracks seamlessly in the background.
Yeah, so I can give you an example of how stablecoins are important for businesses, because this is kind of what we do day to day. We help people to pay with their cryptocurrency, which essentially always means that somebody is receiving that cryptocurrency, usually
That's
us. Right. So in the case of Hive, obviously it's an openly tradable asset. That means that the equivalent fiat value will go up and down every single second of every single day, the same as all of the rest. Now, if you are taking some Hive and loading it onto one of our Visa cards or paying a bill, etc., one of the things about payments that people, or crypto payments that people often don't take into account, is the fact that people have to get paid. That those payments have to be settled, and they get settled in fiat, because ultimately the world still runs on fiat. It's just a fact. We have to adapt to it. And so we will have to convert it in the back end. Occasionally that will work out well for us, because the market has gone up, but there are other times that it doesn't go well for us. So it's a lot safer and easier for us. It removes a lot of stress from our operations when we can accept fiat-pegged assets such as HBD, which is why we will be accepting, or are already, when you're listening to this podcast, we're accepting HBD to load our cards, pay your bills, load your mobile phones, etc. And it's a really original way of doing it. And to be honest, after I'd seen it, and having discussed stablecoins with people a lot in the past, it's one of those things where you're like, oh yeah, makes sense. Why has nobody else done it?
It's elegant as hell. But the reality is it's more work because the blockchain has to think about it in the background. There's a lot of virtual operations that are constantly happening. And so as we know, other blockchains, just by dint of how they've come about, by how their code has been engineered, this would be a lot of overhead. It would either be too expensive or computationally difficult or whatever the case may be. But also for a lot of these currencies, they are meant to basically be directly integrated against real world fiat. And we would like to, in many cases, replace real world fiat. And what that means is helping people understand their online currencies within the context of offline currencies, because that's what you grew up on. That's what you interact with the world in. As you said, we don't get to change it. We can't burn it down from the inside until we actually get inside.
Correct.
This is what people are familiar with. So how do you help them use crypto in a way that is familiar, that is easy, but that allows them, if they choose, to take it offline safely, to use it with someone who might be doing both, or to use it fully? We're only doing crypto. One Hive is one Hive, one HBD is one HBD, one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. Those people too. We need to cover all of these bases, and we need to do it in a way that is sensical. So people will be like, oh, why is it a USD? Because everybody in the world knows USD. That's why, and maybe that's going to change. Hopefully that's going to change.
But this is one of the big things as we discuss how we change the global economy, is how do we move away from fiat, and especially USD, as the expression of value, when really it doesn't actually mean anything. It's an arbitrary thing. But that's one of the big debates. I always end up getting into these things. One of the spaces, we're starting some regular spaces on X. Starting
I know, looking forward.
From today, the 9th of September, we'll be starting next Wednesday on those, and obviously you'll be invited. I think that's one of the topics that I'd really like to get into. How can we represent value in a way that's not fiat-based? because it's a real challenge. but for now, absolutely everything worldwide. Not absolutely everything, because there is some pushback from certain regions on this. But the USD is the global reserve currency. It's what's used in the same way as English is the international language.
I was just going to say,
like
exactly.
it or hate it, it's just the way it is. For now. That doesn't mean that it can't change in the future, though. but for now, we need to accept it and roll with it. So we've pretty much covered most of what I had for the deep dive on Hive, because we managed to integrate all of the sections of the podcast into the first two sections, pretty much. The only thing that we haven't spoken about was there was a couple of things, actually. One of them was the decentralized Hive fund. So the way that works, in order to fund things without having a foundation selling tokens in the traditional way. So could you speak on that a little bit? I
can indeed. Great. The DHF is essentially kind of like, if you're new, this still may be another jumble of letters and words, but like a DAO, like a DAC, you're going to see a lot of D words, and they're not always the fun ones, but usually they start with decentralized, and then you'll find autonomous because it works on its own, and then you'll put another letter in, whatever's trendy, a decentralized autonomous organization, a decentralized autonomous company, whatever, put it in front of whatever you want. But the idea behind it is that a DAO, a DAC, a DHF, the Decentralized Hive Fund, is a mechanism for dispersing funds or making decisions. And that's when you see DAOs or you see these things out in other chains. The idea is that the blockchain has been given a set of rules and it will enact them. And they're often related to governance. Governance can be, how is the code run? Governance can be, how is the money spent? And these are important aspects of how obviously blockchains influence the world. And in a lot of other ecosystems, what you'll find is that DAOs are made up of people who make decisions on behalf of the blockchain. And they often come alongside a foundation. So you have members who are elected, you have a few people who have a big reserve of funds, and they make decisions on behalf of, the blockchain. And that works to a degree. But that also still has a very centralized mechanism. In Hive, we are trying to really be decentralized. And that comes with benefits, and it also comes with difficulties too. But the DHF, it functions like a DAO in that it tells the blockchain, here's where you should send the money. That's the whole purpose of it. But instead of people that are making those decisions on behalf of the blockchain, anyone who holds any amount of staked Hive can vote on any Hive proposal. And anyone who holds any amount of Hive and would like to spend 10 HBD can make any proposal they want. And the community then votes. And the blockchain tallies up the votes and says, yep, this passes, or nope, it doesn't. And then it disperses the funds all by itself. There's no human hands. And what that means is there's nobody holding a key to the Hive fund. Nobody can steal it. Nobody can move it. It's fully keyless. It's fully trustless. And that's very unique. So a really great example is our Zypto integration. Zypto made a proposal and said, hey, we really want to integrate Hive. It's going to be a lot more work. It's not an EVM. It's not a code base we've worked with. We're going to get a developer. We'd like to pay, more than one person to spend their time working on this. What do you think, Hive? So they made a proposal and the Hive user base voted on it and passed it. And so the blockchain started paying out funds to the Zypto team. And as they've been working on this integration, if for whatever reason we thought they ran off with the money or whatever, at any point, people could unvote that proposal and the payout could stop over the course of the disbursement. It's a really different way of doing things. And it can be a little nerve-wracking because, of course, you don't just get the grant up front. And you are subject to having to go out to stump for votes. You do have to get involved with the community. But it means that there's so much less risk to the community. And if you weren't here for the beginning of the podcast, go back and listen. But a foundation holding a ton of funds is obviously a huge attack vector, but it's also a mark of really centralized decision making. And both of those things are very antithetical to what the Hive community wants to foster. So the DHF works really interestingly in that we get some weird ass proposals, like no joke. And early on when it was first introduced, you're going to get somebody who's like, I would like to buy 67 cats. Please give me $400,000. And the community, interestingly enough,
can you think of any like specific really weird ones?
Well, I mean, there was one, and so of course, there's nobody can stop you from making a proposal. Front ends can choose not to display it, right? It's always a granular sort of thing. Very early on, there were some weird, like conspiracy facing ones that were like, oh, the group knows or the group doesn't know. And there were two that were like sort of opposites of each other, and you could vote on either, but then they would just disperse money for absolutely nothing. They were just like some Illuminati stuff, which of course they never got even voted on. And they're still there. If you go dig around and you look on like a Block Explorer or whatever, you'll see them. But, the reality is it again kind of puts the onus on the community and puts the onus on the blockchain culture to decide, what do we want to pay for? And so in some ways, that's really great, because it means that if you've got a foundation in another chain that is really focused on a singular aspect and is going to sort of bulldoze, here's what's best for you, we've decided, and spend the money on it, that can be mitigated. The flip side is it also means you have to do a lot more work, because when you have a foundation, if there's not a lot of interest by the community, and let's face it, from the real world all the way down, nobody likes to go out and vote. Voting numbers on everything from like which ice cream flavor to put in at the corner store to the literal president of the United States. Numbers, voting numbers, it's work. People don't want to do that. People don't want to vote. So it does mean that you have to get out. You have to help people become informed about what you're asking for. And then you have to ask for support. And not only do you have to do that from like big shareholders, you can do it with little ones as well. And what it means is that people are like, oh, well, the only way to do this is to get the whales to support you. But the reality is it means that instead of just having one whale, you could ask for every small HP holder to back you and lift your proposal up. And it's a really cool system. In many ways, it can be more work for the proposer, but it really allows us to spend money on all sorts of things. I mean, we have seen proposals pass for like, there was a family with a child who needed a life-saving surgery. And for them, because they were living in a third world country, it was so expensive, and they would have never been able to save their kid. But for people, who are on the Hive blockchain, here's this family who are live blogging their experience, the heartbreak, the torment. Everybody gets involved and says, yeah, absolutely, we'll send you $2,000 and we'll save this kid's life. Of course we will. We also, if you're looking for really interesting ways for decentralized philanthropy, the DHF has been used for that as well. And a really cool thing, and I'm going to shout it out because, well, heck, it's my platform right now. You can remove it later. A really great example would be not like Mr. Beast wells, but we actually have a really incredible program in Ghana creating freshwater wells. We have community members who live there who spearheaded going out to different villages that do not have fresh water and created a proposal where they will hire local crews to dig wells to create fresh water to be shared by different villages in Ghana. And that actually turned not only into a long-standing proposal, but also these incredible results, 15, so many of these wells that have stopped conflicts across these areas in Ghana, provided families with fresh water. There is actually now a documentary about it that has just been released called Water Direct. And I'll try and find a link and throw it in later. But the long and the short of it is, for every proposal that passes for a Zypto integration, that passes for core development, there are also things that the community sees as, this is what's valuable to us. This is what we'd like to put some funds towards. We don't care if a foundation would agree. The people who hold and use Hive agree. This is what we would like to do.
That's what I enjoyed about interacting with the Hive community, is that I've had more human contact with the Hive community during this process than I've had with the communities of entire blockchains that we've already had integrated for years, which is fantastic. That's what it's supposed to be about, there's going to be people asking difficult questions, etc. But that's fine. It's good. At least you're seeing that there are people that are enthusiastic and passionate, that are, they're invested in more ways than just financially, which is what you want. That's the way that you get a community to thrive over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see a lot of that. And, it's funny because we've kind of come through this whole podcast, and I don't know that I've actually expressly said this, is that Hive itself is a blockchain that holds content. So whether you're just using the coin financially, what most people are using their Hive wallet addresses for are for posting blogs, for making comments, for talking to each other. Some of them don't even realize initially when they get on Hive or one of the Hive games that they are not on a social media site. They think, oh, this Peak-D or Hive.blog or whatever their eSency, there are so many. They think that they're on a social media site and they are, potentially earning a little bit of crypto for using a social media site. But what they're doing is they are engaging with an entire blockchain and an entire ecosystem. And what that means is when you are asking for something from the DHF, or when you are asking to make a poll, or when you are sending your coins around or playing a game, you have a feedback mechanism. Unlike other chains where you see OX ABC123 Bing Bang Bong, that address, you can't go to them and say, hey, what do you think about this new proposed code? On Hive, you can have your DHF proposal, you can have the open source code, you can have a new community created, and then people talk about it on chain. And not only is there a place for feedback, because of course there's social media tied to the chain, there are wallet addresses that have, their identity behind them. So I'm the developer, or no, I am a community leader and I have my own community and I don't support this, or I do. And you also can incentivize that feedback, whether it's good or bad, constructive, or, really helpful. You can then also share a bit of crypto, upvote these answers, upvote these blogs. Conversation, discussion, interaction is natural around decisions made on Hive, people doing stuff, the way that coins are spent. There's a place naturally where you could talk about what you like and what you don't like. And there's also this way to incentivize doing that with a little bit of crypto behind it, because when you are posting content, there's always the possibility that you can earn a little bit of Hive and HBD if it's stuff that people find interesting.
Lots of times in crypto and blockchain, people talk about how our chain would allow you to do this, or our system will allow you to do the other. What I'm really impressed by with Hive is that I'm seeing it happen, and you can as well. You can go onto their various platforms. This is something where there is a bit of a learning curve. I will warn everybody. It's a blockchain, but then there are different front ends that you can where you can access the content, where it's organized in different ways. What I'm getting to is that people are genuinely earning not a huge amount of money, but they are getting bits of money from the likes, etc., from what they post, which is fantastic. It's great to see.
Well, and so that is, and I mean, I'll try not to totally hijack it, but that's kind of the value proposition. And when we come all the way back to where we started was, hey, Hive is built for transacting value beyond money. Value is where humans gather. Where humans gather, marketplaces form, and marketplaces are made up of different types of value. So what is valuable in a conversation is not just earning crypto, but I want to be able to lift up the comment that, added the most to this conversation. That is clearly a real person who comes every day and checks out my content and engages with me. And so you have these circular economies, you have these feedback mechanisms, and you have these places where value is being transacted that you can then reward. But it's not just about rewards, it's about distributing new coins. What we would like to see is that people that want to get involved in conversations, who want to share their cat pictures, who want to write high-level code tutorials, who want to play just Splinterlands or other different games, they want to do shooters like Crypto Shots, whatever, that all of those things are signs of real human engagement, of real human value. Those are the people that we want to show how to use crypto, and we want to help them get some in their hands. So people are like, okay, well, why would a blockchain give out rewards? Well, that is how our distribution mechanism goes. Yes, for other different types of consensus models. You'll see proof of work. You'll see proof of stake. You'll find all these different types of consensus mechanism that this is where newly created coins will go. And Hive basically has a division. We call ourselves delegated proof of stake. So yes, block producers do earn rewards for securing and propagating and helping the network. And you do have some rewards that go to people who are holding HBD, who are staking Hive power. Those guys get rewards as well. But there's another bucket of where new coins go for Hive, and that is people who are using the social aspects of the network. It's called the reward pool. But what it is a way of saying, hey, here are people who are real people engaging, proof of brain, doing things that are valuable, whether that is sharing a cute cat photo or whether that is creating an in-depth tutorial or long form blog. Here are people who are using blockchain. Give them some tokens, give them some coins, let them move around and, A, reward them for engagement, but B, help spread and distribute this coin to people that aren't just the rich people, that aren't just the fastest to bot a whitelist, that aren't just grinding on Twitter. We are rewarding and expanding Hive's reach to the people who actually want to use the blockchain. So yes, it allows for incentivizing engagement. And yes, it allows you to incentivize, like, businesses want their reviews on the blockchain or whatever. Any way that you can think of how people engage with brands, with other people, with companies, with ideas, with each other, there is a way to kind of have that show as value and attaching at least some form of on-chain value to that. And it's just a totally different way of approaching things, for sure.
So one more Hive-specific thing about the way it works, which I wanted to cover, because this is something people are going to see when they create their Hive accounts in Zypto. You've got a load of keys. So you have your human readable at Zypto, for example, but then you've got these other keys. They're, I think, was it owner, active, and posting? Or have I got that wrong? Which were they? Yeah. There's various different keys and they have different functions. So I think it would be great if you could, if I could have you run through it rather than me messing it up and telling people the wrong thing.
In most cases, most people are used to the idea of either a seed phrase or, a set of seed words. And those are the sort of phrases or words that your wallet and the entropy and all the stuff that comes together, they are what it's based on. Hive does have that. So you will have sort of like a master password or your seed phrase. But we recognize that, hey, what happens when people are not super duper crypto savvy, and especially when they're doing things either socially or they're moving from site to site? What happens? They put their seed phrase somewhere and they nuke their fucking wallet. And some educations are expensive. And once that wallet's been compromised, it's toast forever. That's it. Game over. You lost. Thanks for coming out. That is a really bad way to have people managing identities or engaging or being social. That doesn't make sense. So while it sounds really confusing, oh no, I have all of these different keys, the best way to kind of think of them is that they unlock different doors in your house. Your seed phrase is the front door. You get into the house. In the kitchen is where everybody hangs out. They're social. They want to talk. They want to do whatever. That's, your day-to-day access. But you don't keep your money.
You have teenagers in the house and you've got a lock on the fridge.
That's right. You don't keep your money. You don't keep your cash in a pile on the kitchen table, right? Somebody happens to walk in the front door and is hanging out and chatting and just helps themselves to your money. Makes no sense. So there's a separate key that just engages with your funds. And the reason that that's important, and I won't get into the really heavy topics of it, but the reason that these keys are separated is that you can use those keys to do things and gate out what you're doing. So most websites, if you're just going to vote on a poll, make a comment, write a blog, log in so your username shows, you will use your lowest tier key. And even if somebody stole it and somebody could start posting as you, A, they can't drain your wallet, they can't take your money. B, you can actually change that key and regain control.
Okay, so for example, as a company, we could have an employee posting on our Zypto blog without
Right.
giving them any access to funds, for example.
Exactly correct. And one of the things for a user, that's great. That's exactly what you need to know is, oops, I messed up my key, but I have ways of protecting myself. And there's 4 levels of protection. We could go deeper into that, but it would be way too long for this podcast. So basically, our key system is built around that idea of we're going to have newbies. We want people to do things socially, safely, play games, make content, etc. We want people to build communities, maybe share accounts, but also for businesses like yourself. One of the things you can actually do at a high level for a power user, not for everybody, you could actually make a separate key for everybody that was going to post on the account. And all of those keys, have the same access level. So you could actually tell if somebody went rogue and posted an Elon will give you 11 billion Doge, you could actually track it to the key and say, okay, well, this is the key that signed that transaction. I'm revoking that key. And everybody else is fine. So these are the types of things. It's thinking specifically about how do we let people use these wallet addresses, these accounts, how do we let them use them safely and in a way that would mimic what we're doing in Web 2 spaces? Because Web 2 and corporate models and the way that things are done developed for a reason, not just because it makes the most money, but because it makes the most sense. There are lots of things in Web 2 that are better than Web 3. And honest to God, I can see the sniper on the rooftop across the way, taking aim at me right now for saying that as a Web 3, enthusiast and proponent. But the reality is the way things that have happened, the structures that are entrenched are because they're either the safest or the easiest, or they make the most sense. So how do we replicate them, but make them better? How do we replicate them, but make them fair? How do we replicate them, but make them sovereign? How do we take what works and then develop it to be a little bit more equitable, to use the best parts of disruptive tech? We want people to be able to share accounts. We want people to be able to have different forms of access. We want people to be able to make a little bit of a mistake. And the worst thing that could happen is you're going to have, a scam post that you can hide on all the front ends, but that will be tied forever. In a block explorer, they'll see that CrimsonClad made a post about, Vitalik is coming to your hometown, send him 1 ETH and he'll bless you, kind of thing. But the reality is that didn't end my life. That didn't take all my assets. That didn't nuke my account. And I have the choice on how to proceed from there. So there are 4 different keys. They essentially are, if you want to have them broken down really, really easily, there's your seed phrase, which is your master password, master account, exactly how it works in all other forms of crypto. You have your sort of posting key, which is everything day to day, blogs, comments, likes, polls, etc. You have your active key, which moves your money around. You have an owner key, which is a key that you can use to change your other keys if you want. So you basically won't use it most of the time, but that's that one that we said, hey, remember, I've been compromised. If you've got that owner key, you can change your others. And then we have one called a memo key. And I'll touch on this really, really quickly. When you transfer coins from wallet to wallet on the Hive blockchain, you can send a memo with it. So right off the bat, if you were not to use any of the social features, any of the games, nothing, you just wanted to be a speculative trader and you wanted to move a coin from one place to another, I'm going to send some Hive to Joe. I'm going to send it and I'm going to say, hey, Zypto rules. I can send a memo, a public memo with it that says, hey, Zypto's the best. But privately, I'm going to send him a second transfer and be like, but Joe smells. But I don't want anybody but Joe to see that. I can encrypt it end to end. So if I send Hive to any other wallet, I can choose either a public message to go with it, or I can do an encrypted end to end only between me and that other key. I can send that on chain and you can use your memo key to decode it if you want. And that would mean that I'm not using my active key. So I could look at that memo in my wallet without still using a key that could transfer those funds. So once again, that allows, if you really wanted to on Hive, 2 people could have an end-to-end encrypted chat sending the same dust back and forth for no fees forever, if you really wanted. You could have an on-chain chat that is only readable by the 2 users sending the same 0.0001 Hive back and forth without fees. And it would be fully encrypted to anybody else. So there's lots of ways to use the coins themselves because the blockchain is able to store different types of text data, JSON data. It's so expansive and I don't want to go for another hour unless you want to go for another hour, which I know you don't. So, We got a lot of keys. Zypto's helping you manage them. But if you're using one of any of the front ends, say a blogging front end, we have lots of tools that help you with key safety. And what they are is kind of like how MetaMask works when you sign a transaction, except it doesn't suck donkey balls like MetaMask does. And I've been waiting to say that. MetaMask sucks donkey balls. It's dangerous. It's got bad wording. Most people who get wrecked through MetaMask. So we have tools like Hive Keychain, Hive Off, different forms.
I can neither confirm or deny whether I agree with this opinion.
But the reality is Zypto will help you use the right authority and the right types of transaction signing inside their app. And if you're using one of the social apps or another place where you're doing different authorities, then you will be able to use a tool like Hive Keychain, like Hive Auth, like some of the websites. You will get a better picture of what type of transaction you're going to sign, whether you're going to allow it and trust it, or whether or not you're going to decline it. But it allows you to look and see, like, you know, that if you just blindly allow a posting key transaction, that the worst thing that could happen is, oh shit, I posted something I didn't want to, and maybe I should change my keys. You've got different options is really what it comes down to. So as technical as it sounds, with good user experience, like some of the tools that are out there, these key management tools, you will find it makes more sense than some of the solutions that exist, like the MetaMasks or the really complex block explorers. They'll give you more options.
Good stuff. So we're going to skip over the big picture today, as we're going to be speaking a lot on our X Spaces. We'll go over those kinds of things then. And we're going to move on to the audience Q&A. We've already seen that there are some great questions written here in the chat. We're in @Zypto Global once again. We recommend that, obviously, that people should come and join here, if only to listen to future great podcast recordings. But before that, does anybody want to use their actual human voices to communicate with CrimsonClad and ask her a question?
I wouldn't want to talk to me either. It's okay.
Don't take it personally. They do get rather shy.
No, it's fine. You can smell me through the mic. I get it.
Okay, so I'm gonna go through some of these questions in text format. First one we've got blog articles are super fun, but is there a way to create more short form content on Hive like on Twitter? That's from our friend Decentralized Creative.
Absolutely. So Hive has no real restrictions on what type of text-based content can be put into blocks. So it also specifically has types of transactions, blogs and comments. So blogs are expected to probably be longer, and a lot of the front ends have evolved to support that. That being said, there are a lot of options for really short, tiny microblogging, I think is what we would call it technically. Twitter, and we all still calling it that. We refuse to call it X. Twitter, short kind of little bites. There are a ton of options for that. There is things like Ecency, which is a long form content platform, has a smaller sort of microblogging option inside it called Waves. PeakD has, I believe it's Snaps. There's Like2. There are a number of different ways of actually looking at short form content, and they can be inside of different social media websites, or there can be front ends that are very specifically meant to have either just short form picture content like2 is similar to sort of an Instagram. And things like Inleo, INLEO, is a cross-chain platform that has tokens on different chains, but also uses Hive as a microblogging database. There's quite a few options, and all of them often, depending on which one you like best, you can see content from others on. So yes, microblogging is totally possible. Short form content is totally possible. There's also, of course, the power user move, which is anything that can be put into a Hive block. Maybe like CrimsonClad is very cool. You could put that in as a post. You could pull it and display it. Oh, okay.
What you should definitely put in that block is what Decentralized Creative has then added, which is that you probably smell of dry roses, potpourri, and death metal.
Oh, he's exactly correct. And what death metal smells like is the skulls of my enemies. So Yeah, put that in a block. And then there are ways anybody can pull from the Hive blockchain like a database. You can embed content on your own sites, on your own forums. You can build your own front ends. You can use RSS to, send your short form from the Hive blockchain out to traditional social media microblogging. Lots of options, or even just something like a little iframe on your site where you want to pull only your short form content. You can do that too. So yeah, short form content still completely possible, whether that's in the form of a content in a tiny form like snaps or waves or whatever you want to use. It is absolutely, there are whole interfaces where people are only doing that type of content, very similar to Twitter. And there's lots of people who are cross-posting back and forth from traditional short-form content sites to Hive.
Excellent. Right, next question. This one from Andrea.
Yeah.
CoinMarketCap says that Hive max supply is infinite. What is the plan for creating more tokens, and what will be the limit for supply? That's the question.
Amazing question. So technically, as of right now, that is correct. The Hive supply is infinite. Now that scares the crap out of people, but it is.
Yet they're very happy about the money they have in the bank account.
That's right. But when you think about certain types of currencies that have a max supply, they run into their own problems. And you'll kind of see right now, actually, even sort of, this is the secondary block size wars are happening around Bitcoin and things like that. Supply can be difficult. It is one way of driving demand, for sure, when we talk about scarcity. But in terms of Hive, the way that it works is we have something that is our inflation schedule. Hive is an inflationary currency. And what happens is every day new currency is created and it is distributed through different buckets. During the course of the podcast today, I talked a little bit about how that is distributed. A portion of it goes to the block producers. So every day block producers are the ones who are signing blocks. They are gathering up transactions, placing them in the blockchain, agreeing that all these transactions match up with the rules of consensus. They're securing the network, very much like proof of work where, they solve a block and get a reward. That happens on our chain too. So a portion of those new coins that are created every day go to block producers. A portion of new coins created every day go to the people who are earning their interest on their Hive and their HBD. So when they're holding their HBD, we mentioned HBD can be staked for APR, high APR, 15%. Some of those new coins go to those people. And then the last bucket, as we were just discussing, is the rewards pool bucket. So people who are coming on and using Hive every day, whether they're brand new or whether they are old users that have been around forever, like me, and are part of the furniture, the rewards pool is calculated every day that some of those newly created coins go to those people. Now, the inflation schedule is actually on a slow decline over time. So every year from here on out, there will be 0.5% less new Hive created. Sounds really crazy, but what it means is that as we approach infinity, the creation rate slows down and it will stop at 0.5%. So in the future, 20 years, 19, 18 years, I can't remember off the top of my head. Sorry about that. There will be only 0.5% inflation rate versus, where we started. And even right now, in the last, say, 2 years, there have been multiple times where Hive actually still has been deflationary because there are burn mechanisms inside Hive's day-to-day activities. So when you create new accounts, Hive is burned for that. When you are transferring or converting Hive between Hive and HBD, some of it is burned each time as a fee. It doesn't go to a person. It actually is burned as part of the mechanism of the blockchain. So multiple times in the last couple of years, even though we technically have a fairly high inflationary rate right now, Hive has actually ended up being deflationary, even as we send new coins out, even as people are earning all this stuff, just because there are mechanisms within the chain that help us sort of control that overall supply. So the reality
and those
is
mechanisms are actually used.
They're actually used.
Because if
they're
they were not
just
used, then it would do nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And so what it means is it still supports the continuation and the increase of value in the way that Hive is used. They're considered sinks that help, maintain the scarcity of the coin. But overall, when you do have something that works as a functional currency, truly deflationary or truly capped supply isn't always going to be functional because you're always experiencing, wallet losses, locked up coins, things that are sent away. The reality is a truly, truly capped supply in an economy that is meant to be robust and healthy over time doesn't always function well, especially in one sort of like Hive where people are using it for a lot of different things. When you have something like a proof of work where security is so important and it is the only sort of distribution mechanism, and the whole sort of proposition of the hard money is that it is a capped supply. That's one thing, but that's not Hive's value prop. So for us, we've actually seen that, we've seen years where the max supply actually goes down just because people are using the token, but it is a long and slow decline on the inflation schedule because that allows us to continue circulating new coins. It allows us to support the value of the coin, but also recognizes that you need to continue to make money and have economies thrive and be healthy as well.
That's good. It's the long game, once again. So next question is from Finn. From a technical perspective, what was exciting for the Hive team about integrating with Zypto app? Now, it says Hive team, but I think we're going to switch that to Hive community because that's all there is, really, isn't that?
That is true. And people do refer to us as Hive team. And, I've been working in sort of core operations, if you want to call that, for a really long time. But am I employed by anyone? No. Do I belong to any organization? No. I'm just a crazy lady with a dream who built up a reputation, who now travels around the world, works with a number of different blockchains people, and who really is a big proponent and is willing to voluntarily get shit done. And that's how Hive works. And in some ways, that makes us so incredibly strong. And in some ways, it means that we have to jump bigger hurdles to get things done because we're often herding cats. Good and bad, that's the trade-off. But it certainly matches up with our decentralized ethos. And boy, oh boy, it's been a ride and I've had a lot of fun. So exciting for the people of Hive, and we're all a big team here. So, the Zypto Hive team now is combined, is that we really don't have a lot of interconnectedness with other chains, in that often when we get out there, swaps have to go through, centralized routes because DEXs can't immediately use us because we're not EVM compatible. And we do have some bridges and things like that are upcoming. So we'll see changes to that. But for the first time, one of the trickiest things about this decentralized aspect of Hive, and why I bring it up, is because governments hate that. Governments hate this one trick, and that is that we don't have a corporate entity. So often when people ask, well, okay, you're on Binance, you're on the world's #1 exchange, but you're not on crypto.com. Why is that? Well, because they want a bunch of US compliance is essentially it. And because we don't have that, it means that access to Hive, especially for US users or through sort of the really centralized aspects, can be a bit more tricky. And so Zypto is this really awesome way to allow more people to be able to kind of have a conduit that is not centralized to use their Hive, to bring people in, to allow people out, and to sort of be this sort of connective tissue for Hive and some of the other solutions that exist. Now, there will be others that will come, but I, honest to God, don't think most of them will match up with the ethos and sort of with the idea of building for sovereignty and true decentralized ideology. So I know that's kind of, it's not a cop-out to just say we're excited working with Zypto because Zypto is Zypto. There's a lot of the features that are immediately opened up that we don't have. But yeah, the big one is that we suddenly sort of have this this really beautiful wallet that opens up a lot of incredible, cool options for our European and especially our US users who have been so locked out of this market, because Zypto recognizes, hey, here is a currency and an ecosystem that has value. And also we work in a way where we want to look at how does decentralized tech, how do we support it without putting ourselves in obviously governmental or red tape trouble. But how do we support protocols that are truly decentralized? And we don't always get given that chance, especially by sort of the powers that be inside the US. And this is that Twitter space topic for the future, is how do we break away from that? Well, it starts with integrations like these.
It's all about making the whole blockchain space integrated. We can't expect to get out there into the world and quote unquote take over the incumbent economy with a new, more decentralized one if we can't even work together as a community, as a broader community. And that is one of the things that we're working towards at Zypto, and we love working with Hive. I know you're good friends with Joel at Dash as well, who's also been on the podcast. There's a really great group of people out there.
Joelle is like my work wife.
Yes. So there's too much emphasis in the media and in people's minds on the speculative aspect of this, which is distracting somewhat from the mission. But all of this time, the core values that this movement have been built on have been guiding communities such as Hive's, and we're delighted to be able to help with that. So it's, we're all excited. The last question, actually, from Mario is: how do you get Hive for non-crypto people? For example, gamers playing games on your ecosystem.
There's two ways to take the question, and one is, how do you get it if you need Hive, which would be, like outside of, you can get it through Zypto by the time that you are listening to this. We are on a number of exchanges, blah, 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 blah. But I choose to interpret this question as like, if you're entering the ecosystem, you're a newbie, you're non-crypto, and you're entering the Hive ecosystem, how do you get Hive? And so what ends up happening is, in most cases, and I can see Toby in the chat has given a great example. So we'll use Splinterlands and then we'll give some other examples. A lot of these games, when you go to play them, Splinterlands or a wrestling organization online, or, there are a ton of games, and I give those two out because they're two of my favorite, where when you start playing, you can start playing for free to try it out. And then if you decide you want to make an account, you can buy, in Splinterlands, it's called a spell book. In wrestling organization online, it's a booking pass, whatever. So you're paying for them in fiat, but what's happening in the background is you're having a username created, you're having a wallet created for you, you're having Hive obviously soul bound to that account, as we mentioned. And as soon as you have that address and you're starting to use things, whether they're games or even like going to a social media site, if you went to Ecency, for example, you could create an account like you're just joining Facebook, like you're just joining a website. I'm going to pick my username in the background, and a wallet address is being created for you, and you could start engaging. And so what it means is you don't actually have to buy Hive to start using Hive, which is a totally different thing from most speculative cryptocurrency. You have to buy the cryptocurrency to use the cryptocurrency to trade the cryptocurrency. And for Hive, you could do that. You could go that route. I'm going to get a wallet. I'm going to buy some Hive. I'm going to start trading, or I'm going to hold for APR. But in this question, the question is, I'm a non-crypto person. I'm not trying to buy crypto right now. I'm coming and I'm discovering a social media site or a game or a service. And when I do that, I will be signing up through one of those, Splinterlands or Ecency or Peak D or whatever. And in the background, it's kind of automagic, is the word that I like to use. So it's automatic, and it works in a way that feels magical. It just happens. It's automagical. Your username that you think you're creating, which you're used to doing, you do that on every website on Earth, suddenly becomes a wallet address, and in the background gets loaded up for you. That soul-bound Hive is attached to the account. And even though you created it through Splinterlands, and many people play Splinterlands and never realize there's anything else. They don't even realize they're on a blockchain. They just think, hey, this is a cool game. I like it.
That's exactly what we should all be aiming for. People don't need to know that they're using blockchain. In the same way,
100%.
If people understood what was happening when they pay with a card, I think they might even stop using them. They're just so complex, everything that goes on in the background. Like when you send a bank transfer or all of these things, or when you drive your car, you don't need to know how it works.
That's correct. The box goes from A to B.
Exactly. You press the pedals, you turn the wheel, and the things do what they're meant to do, and they're tools. You don't need to know exactly the way that a microchip works in order to get the most out of it. there's been an overemphasis, not an overemphasis because it's necessary, but we're only just coming out of the nerd phase, The whole crypto industry, apart from the speculative side, has been run by, I'm going to say, crooks largely, and then you have the technical side run by nerds. Now it's time for us, the normal people, which all of us, to use the amazing tool that has been created by the nerds, which is the way things work. Respect to the nerds, they are my people. To just use it, and you don't need to go through jump through a gazillion hoops, or you shouldn't need to. So I always love hearing and seeing all of these examples that are finally coming to the forefront of this. And in the case of Hive, the technology is already there. All that's required is for people to build on it. These games are already running. These blogs are already running. There's absolutely no reason why something like a Twitter, because that's its name, couldn't run on Hive, for example. So this gets me fired up. So I'm gonna have to lead towards wrapping up here, I'm afraid.
Yeah, absolutely. And we say okay, build everything on Hive, but we don't even want that. I mean, here's a closing thought for everybody as you kind of lead into in the outro, is that we don't necessarily believe, even though Hive does a lot of things super, super well, we don't even want to see it replace other ecosystems, other cryptocurrencies. What it is it is kind of like the way that AI is hopefully going to be used now. It is an amplification tool. It's connective tissue. It is a way to take something that you have already, whether it's Web 2, Web 3, another chain. It's a way to make it feature rich, and it's a way to take advantage of open source tech to make something safe from the ground up. And whatever you build on top of it is protected by ideology and open source code that is a known entity. And then build whatever you want on top, as centralized or as decentralized, as many different components as you want. But take from the features that we have, take from the ideology that we have, and use that to make whatever you're doing better. And if you're a normie, you're not a builder at all, then here are tools that you can kind of just enfold into your life. Find a thing that you love, whether that is posting cat videos or whether that is, starting to use blockchain to log extensive hashes from your crazy experimental Taproot transactions. Whatever you do, you can do it utilizing Hive in a way that hopefully will make it better. That's what we want to see. It's not just about Hive. It's about sort of crypto and blockchain and that disruptive tech that is, coming for us all. So is it the good tech or is it the bad tech? Use the good tech. Use it for good. Use it for what people want to do. Use it for value.
Excellent. So where should people go to learn more about Hive?
Well, you can go to hive.io, but to be fair, that's a pretty generic blockchain overview. I often recommend for most people, what they would want to do is check out one of the big front ends that is for content or one of the games. So think about what you do on the internet most. If you're a gamer, then I highly recommend you want to check out Splinterlands. You want to look at Wrestling Organization Online. Crypto Shots is an incredible first-person shooter with free-to-play tournaments where you can win free crypto in Hive, Wax, other currencies, free to play, things like that. Or if you're somebody who just wants to poke around, you want to look at pictures, you want to read cool content, Ecency, PeakD, InLeo, or Hive.blog are all cool places where you could just open them up and they look familiar. They look like a social media site you've already used. And you can actually, you don't have to do anything. You could just browse around, look at what people are talking about, look at where rewards are going, see some cool pictures. Travel Feed is a beautiful travel focused site. Maybe you want a place to put your travel photos that has AI content production tools built right in. You want to be able to attach your own URL to it. There's a great example. There are so many options. And so if this is crazy and you don't want to deal with any of that, on the hive.io main website, there is a page called Ecosystem, and it has a bunch of these apps that you can just go and pick different ones and click on and look and see. Here's all the games. Perfect. Here's all the front ends. That might be a great place for you to kind of explore.
Excellent. Okay, so all that's left to say now is thank you, everyone, for listening to the Crypto Made Easy with Zypto podcast. If you found it useful, helpful, interesting, If you appreciate the effort that goes into making these recordings, we would very much appreciate it if you could subscribe. Also, do not forget that we, as do we all, depend on the whims of the algorithm gods. So help us out, save our digital souls by making the appropriate sacrifices and offerings through thumbs, ratings, positive comments, and all of that stuff. Make sure you visit Zypto.com as well as Hive.io. Download the app. We're currently around 150,000 downloads. Usage is growing every single day, so you should definitely download it and find out why. My name's Joe Parkin, and I will see you again very soon for another episode with another great guest. Any closing statements before we wrap up?
Absolutely. And it comes back to value again. Hey, remember, everything you do online is valuable. Don't be tricked out of your value. Don't be told you are not valuable. You are. Everything you do is. Act accordingly and know that you are worth it.
Absolutely. Thanks once again. It's been absolutely brilliant. And I shall see you very soon on these X Spaces, Twitter Spaces is the proper name, on the @Zypto app account on Twitter.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we own it. Freedom, money flow, can't postpone it. Zypto, V5, Web3, dreams alive. Spin HBD, let's thrive. Ignite the vibe. This is crypto made easy by Zypto. Let's get it.